What if the chains they forged for you become the throne that crushes their empires? Why bow to those who chained your soul? They mocked your light until it burned fierce. Shadows now kneel at your awakened wrath. What if your spirit's rise crushes their thrones? You feel the fire coiling in your core. Betrayal sparked this unholy elevation now. Enemies whisper prayers as your power swells. How did the meek become the merciless storm? The veil tears open with forbidden revelations. Pain forged your rank in celestial fires. They laughed at your fall from grace. Little did they know ascension awaited silently. Dark winds carry echoes of your vengeance. What hidden ranks do you claim tonight? I embraced the abyss and rose unchained. Voices from the void screamed divine fury. But fury demands a soul's eternal toll. You hesitate at the edge of glory. My throne built on knees of the fallen. Allies turned serpents in the sacred night. How do you unmask the faithless wolves? The signs flicker like dying candle flames. I missed them and tasted bitter exile. Now I hunt with heaven's sharpened gaze. Spiritual storms fuel my relentless crusade. What if defeat masks your true calling? Victory hides in veils of sacred trials. They scorned my visions until I ascended. But ascension summons shadows of old sins. Who stirs in the ether plotting your fall? I raised barriers stronger than angelic steel. Agony carved me into a wrathful god. You sense that blaze igniting your veins. Deceived once, but eternity vows no more. Eclipses teach truth stars dare not reveal. What enigma brews in your soul's archive? I alchemized curses into crowns of light. Foes scatter as the divine beast stirs. But the beast hungers for cosmic balance. How do you leash the wrath within? It craves not just triumph, but oblivion. My path wound through veiled spirit realms. Ancestral ghosts murmured lost holy rites. What if might flows from taboo altars? I drank deep without a whisper of doubt. They branded me heretic for seeking stars. Heresy birthed my realm of fierce dominion. But dominion shatter if vigilance fades. Who covets the halo I forged in hell? Doubts creep like thorns in sacred gardens. You feel them prick your rising spirit. Torment's resonance propels unyielding ascent. I hammered divinity from fractured faith shards. What shatters you remolds you into legend. They belittled my spark until it blazed. Now I descend from heights they fear. But descents carve wounds on divine flesh. How do you mend while unleashing hell? The scales tip on threads of fate's loom. Ethereal murmurs vow boundless sacred might. You lean in as the pull intensifies. My elevation ignited with one profane oath. Companions fled when tempest tested true hearts. What fidelity endures in realms of deceit? I trusted only the pulse of inner gods. Gods honed by vigils under blood moons. Dim realms unveil secret suns blind away. But secrets scar deeper than seraph blades. You ache, yet bloom into eternal flame. I seized the void as my holy ground. Adversaries quiver at my sanctified name. What if your whisper commands heavenly dread? The Odyssey exacts offerings beyond mortal ken. I offered them freely, eyes on the prize. Now essence surges through my veiled form. But unbound essence spawns its own demons. Who tames the god once fury breaks free? Sacred drive murmurs solutions in parables. You pursue them through labyrinths of soul. My saga circles to that cursed dawn. Storms raged as treachery pierced like spears. What if foresight had lit the dark path? Regret taunts with its venomous hindsight glow. Now I foresee strikes before they manifest. But foresight falters when anarchy descends. How do you harness the chaos divine? I welcomed it as my celestial kin. Kin morph to rivals in this timeless dance. You engage or dissolve into the mist. My climb sparked in the nadir of faith. Scaling voids tempered my unassailable creed. What void ensnares your spirit this eve? Shatter it with fierce primordial zeal. They jeered until my aura eclipsed suns. Now, hush descends when my presence arrives. But hush conceals fermenting ethereal gales. Who schemes in the hush of spirit halls? I attend, poised for the impending clash. Clashes erupt swift in veiled dominions. You evade or vanish into the ether. My zeal blazes like undying soul pyres. Pyres that devour frailty without remorse. What frailty lurks in your sacred depths? Confront it ere it engulfs your light. I confronted mine and claimed the throne. Triumph savors divine with a shadowed bite. But bites hone for conflicts yet to come. How many conflicts till serenity descends? Serenity evades in this zealous chase. You hunted via might's crooked trails. My bastion rests on pillars of ordeal. Ordeal they wrought with unholy intent. What if you wield their torment as blade? Inversion crafts the supreme arcane right. I perfected it amid error's cruel forge. Errors that almost unmade my essence. But unmaking heralded my seraphic rebirth. Rebirth soars beyond their wildest reveries. Now, reveries plague them in vigilant voids. What visions of dread do you sow in kin? Weave them with measured glacial sanctity. Sanctity slices keener than feral ire. I mastered restraint in abyssal sanctums. Sanctums that claim the frail for I. You navigate or drown in those tides. My decree was to master the surge. Surges shift with unforeseen savage might. How do you surf the swells untouched? Foresee, evolve, encounter with greater force. Greater force etches profound, lasting seals. Seals that resound across epics unbound. My heritage weaves from those resonant calls. But heritage's dim sans fierce safeguard. Who assays the crown I claimed by right? Dim stirs with yearning, cloaked challengers. You detect their drift in faint omens. Omens I once spurned to dire cost. Now, watchfulness shields my hallowed terrain. Terrain broadened by audacious, tireless strides. Strides deemed perilous by timid souls. What peril will you embrace for gain? I embraced all and reaped the bounty. Bounty stained with ichor and toil. But stained aureum gleams fiercest in gloom. You yearn for that gleam in your heart. My chronicle spirals to fresh perfidy strata. Strata strip to expose profounder guiles. How many strata till the nucleus truth? Quest it via doubt's winding corridors. Doubt enfeebles solely the unready psyche. I clad mine in arcane sagacity. Sagacity reaped from wounds that endure. Wounds that recall skirmishes conquered. What wounds etch your Odyssey's map? Bear them as emblems of endurance. Endurance matures to supremacy in time. Time yields to those who grasp it firm. I grasped instants others squandered in vain. Now, instants amplify my swelling might. But might draws spite like shades to flame. Shades perish in the blaze they seek. You behold their demise sans compassion. My zeal kindles that insatiable pyre. Pyre that lights routes to exaltation. Routes strewn with vanquished kindred's relics. What relics line your forthcoming trail? Tread atop them with steadfast gait. Gate onward into uncharted dim spheres. Spheres where entities like me flourish. You ally, or wither in the tumult. My transmutation fulfilled, yet ceaselessly shifting. Shifting to confront novel, veiled perils. What peril looms upon your threshold? Ready ere it descends with lethal grace. Lethal strokes skim off fortified essences. I smelted my plate in infernal crucibles. Crucibles fiercer than any fleshly blaze. You sense its fervor summoning you near. Near to the brink of no recourse. Recourse null once you traverse the veil. My traversal birthed the entity's true dawn. Dawn agonizing, yet freeing and dim. Dim soothes those who clasp it tight. Clasp wholly and unleash veiled potencies. Potencies that rend fetters of frailty. What fetters restrain you this very hour? Sunder them with dim, feral vigor. Vigor directed via resolute, adamant creed. Creed that warps existence to my blueprint. Blueprint complex with coils of mystery. Mystery holds adversaries in perpetual guess. You command it for your ascendancy. My ascendancy burgeons with each shrewd coil. Coils that seal solely at my whim. Whim prudent in this dance of dims. Dim sway to my muted decree. Decree voiced with breathed dim resolve. Resolve pristine in its merciless quest. Quest for might transcending fleshly bounds. Bounds sundered like brittle mirage panes. What mirages impede you presently? Sunder them and stride into exalt. Exalt rushes akin to nocturnal gale. Gale that parts ways for subjugation. Subjugation murmurs vows of abundance. Abundance coils linger in the tale's bloom. Your wrath isn't rage, it's holy decree. They trembled at whispers of your name. What if knees bend before your gaze? You command it now, unyielding and pure. Enemies plot in the hush of doubt, but doubt crumbles under your sacred foot. How did silence birth such thunderous might? The stars, aligned in your shadowed favor. Pain's forge hammered your spirit to steel. They sought to dim your inner sun. Now, your light blinds their feeble eyes. What veils lift when wrath takes throne? I stepped into the flame without fear. Echoes of ancients fueled my climb, but climbs reveal chasms of forgotten sins. You pause, wondering the cost of peaks. My realm sprawls on altars of the broken. Bonds severed in the name of truth. How do you discern the divine from deceit? Flickers in the soul like embers aglow. I overlooked them and wandered lost realms. Now, I pursue with unblinking spirit sight. Celestial gales propel my endless vigil. What if loss unveils your destined crown? Triumph cloaks in shrouds of holy strife. They derided my call until I answered. But answers summon tempests of veiled foes, who bruise in the firmament against your rise. I erected spires taller than deceitful towers. Torment etched me into a vessel of storm. You feel that tempest brewing in your blood. Forsaken once, but heaven's decree no repeat. Lunar phases impart lore solar rays shun. What riddle simmers in your essence's vault? I transmuted thorns to scepters of dawn. Kin flee as the Archon within stirs. But the Archon thirsts for equilibrated voids. How do you bridle the gale inside? It yearns beyond victory for cosmic hush. My trail meandered through obscured ether paths. Eldritch kin intoned arcane benedictions. What if sovereignty springs from shunned shrines? I imbibed without a tremor of qualm. They deemed me profane for courting voids. Profanity sired my sphere of stern rule. But spheres fracture if century slumbers. Who eyes the diadem I seized by grace? Fears burgeon like brambles in hallowed groves. You sense them snag your soaring essence. Affliction's reverberation spurs ceaseless uplift. I forged sanctity from splintered belief flakes. What fractures you recasts you into myth. They diminished my ember till it roared. Now, I cascade from vaults they dread, but cascades incise gashes on hallowed skin. How do you restore while loosing gales? The equipoise sways on strands of destiny's weave. Whirls that latch solely at my caprice. Caprice judicious in this whirl of murk. Murk capers to my tacit fiat. Fiat proclaimed with respired murk purpose. Purpose, immaculate in its unrelenting hunt. Hunt for force transcending somatic confines. Confines riven like frangible phantasm sheets. What phantasms hamper you at present? Rive them and pace into sublimity. Sublimity surges like vespertine squall. Squall that divides roots for domination. Domination susurrates pledges of profusion. Profusion whirls prowl in the narrative's efflorescence. Knees buckle under your unspoken command. They sought to bury your sacred spark. Now your flame devours their hollow shells. What if wrath is the key to thrones? You wield it now with heaven's own grip. Foes gather in the gloom of envy, but envy withers before your radiant scorn. How did whispers forge this cataclysmic voice? The cosmos conspired in your veiled ascent. Torment's anvil shaped your essence to blade. They aimed to quench your eternal thirst. Now your river floods their barren lands. What barriers fall when spirit claims crown? I plunged into the vortex unafraid. Resonances of forebears propelled my surge. But surges expose rifts of buried faults. You linger, pondering the levee of summits. My domain extends on pyres of the humbled. Ties rent in pursuit of veracity. How do you sift sanctity from subterfuge? Glimmers in the core, akin to sparks of flame. I disregarded them and roamed forsaken plains. Now I chase with unflinching essence vision. Astral zephyrs impel my perpetual guard. What if reverse unveils your fated diadem? Exaltation veils in mantles of pious contest. They jibed my summons till I heeded. But heedings evoke cyclones of shrouded rivals. Who simmers in the Empyrean versus your uplift? I upreared pinnacles loftier than mendacious minarets. Affliction inscribed me into a urn of gale. You divine that cyclone, fermenting in your ichor. Renounced once, but firmaments ordain no reprise. Lunar cycles bestow wisdom. Solar beams eschew. What conundrum festers in your quintessence's crypt? I metamorphosed barbs to rods of aurora. Sib flee, as the potentate indoors rouses. But the potentate hankers for poise voids. How do you reign the zephyr indoors? It hankers yonder triumph for astral lull. My trace strayed via veiled ether byways. Eldritch Sib chanted occult benisons. What if dominion gushes from spurned sanctums? I quaffed San's quiver of scruple. They adjudged me sacrilegious for wooing gulfs. Sacrilege begot my orb of austere sway. But orbs splinter if sentinel dozes. Who ogles the tiara I usurped by favor? Apprehensions swell like briars in consecrated copses. You divine them latch your soaring quintessence. Grief's afterclap spurs unremitting elevation. I cast piety from fissured credence splinters. What fissures you recasts you into fable. They lessened my cinder till it bellowed. Now I deluge from vaults they quail. But deluges incise furrows on hallowed dermis.